You are undefeated. You face trouble, but you are unconquered. Life threw you punches, but you're still standing. Doubt had its say, and you shouted back. This isn't just motivation. It's your reality. Today, you're about to embark on a transformative journey, aligning yourself with principles that forge you into an unbreakable force, capable of facing life's adversities head on. Stand ready. Ignite the fire. Be unconquered.
If you're a man that controls his own destiny, a man that is always in the pursuit of being better, you are in the right place. You are responsible. You are strong. You are a leader. You are a force for good. Gentlemen, you are the Alpha, and this is the Alpha Quorum.
Welcome back to the Alpha Quorum Show. Brad Singletary here. Welcome to another episode that's going to light your fire. I promise you that. We're aiming to light this fire in you, this raw, unfiltered hunger for triumph and a rock-solid belief in what you can do. Today, I want to work on this idea that you're essentially undefeated. Yeah, life has thrown you curveballs and brick walls and all sorts of stuff at you. But here you are standing tall, a living, breathing symbol of your own grit. Resilience, that uncrushable will of yours. Tough times for sure. Did they break you? Hell no. Today we're digging into how to harness that unyielding spirit. The goal is to help you keep rolling forward with the kind of energy and confidence that just won't quit. So just a bit of an overview. We're going to be talking about acknowledging your past triumphs. If you're going to see yourself as an undefeated and unconquered man, you first have to recognize your wins, no matter how small they may seem. These are your battle scars and your medals, man. You know, like a mental inventory of the victories that you've had. That's important. We're going to talk about understanding the shifts as a pivot maybe, but not a loss. And this is key. So pivoting or changing lanes, that's not losing. That's being savvy and being adaptable. We're going to dive into why being flexible when you hit a wall isn't weakness. It's a survival strategy. We're going to talk about the value of endurance, why gritting it out matters big time. We're going to talk about the nitty gritty of the science and headspace that shows sticking it out is going to increase your unparalleled strength. We're going to talk about solidifying inner foundations. So you ever hear the saying, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything? Well, that's why you need a belief system that's as solid as a rock. We're going to talk about how to talk to yourself in a way that sets you up for success. We'll discuss the power of community. You can't do this alone. You've got to surround yourself with other warriors. It's a two-way street of lifting each other up. We're going to explore the give and take of holding yourself and your circle of men accountable. We're going to talk about facing forward and heading into your life with some certainty and with some faith and how to do that. So you've got this unbroken past, right? We're going to use it. I want you to let it guide you as you continue just stomping toward your future. We're going to talk about why having a crystal clear vision is not just some motivational fluff. It actually moves mountains. We're going to talk about the resilience mindset, and your thoughts are like the steering wheel. So I'm going to give you some real deal tips on keeping your mind tuned into the frequency of being unbeatable. So buckle up, dudes. We're about to dig deep. Before we get started here, I just want to thank you for your participation and your support. We've had so many guys reaching out about our show and their thoughts and ideas, feedback. It's amazing to me the things that people say, people that I'm surprised to have been listening, reach out to me and talk to me about it and share their feedback. So I appreciate all of that. It really helps us to know that what we're doing matters, if even to a smaller audience. We're trying to beef up our YouTube presence and also TikTok and other places. So like and subscribe and share and, do all the things that if you support what we're doing, do the things that you know are going to help us get to where we need to be, which is just expanding our influence. So I want to take a second to dive into something first that's really kind of woven into the fabric of my life. This is my own and my family's deep-rooted loyalty to our favorite football team. So I grew up in North Florida, right near Tallahassee. And in fact, when I was very young, my family lived in Tallahassee for a while. And Florida State University, the Florida State Seminoles, is something we almost kind of worship. It's a family pastime. It's a tradition for us to be involved. Both my parents went to school and walked along that campus. Also, my brother and his daughter recently graduated from Florida State. And our family church that we attended was right in the shadows of the stadium, basically right where heroes have been made. Many famous athletes have come through this school. And as a kid, I watched them and I had stars in my eyes, just imagining myself on that field as a player. I one time even got to meet the man, the myth, the legend, Bobby Bowden. This guy, he died a few years ago, but he was the head coach at Florida State from the time I was in diapers. I was like a year old when he became the head coach there. And he just died a few years ago. But under him, the team was seriously a force to be reckoned with. Now, just hang with me if you're not a sports fan or you don't like college football. Stick with me because I'm going to tie this in to some very important points. So this team, as I grew up, so I played football in high school and in college. And during my, teenage years and early 20s, this team was just seriously one of the best programs in the country. And they had this dynasty run from the 90s through like the early 2000s. So after 2013, they were terrible. So it's been 10 years of being kind of the sad fan who's always upset and chooses not to even watch some games because of the emotional investment. Probably ridiculous, but you know how it is if you're a fan of any sports team. So they've been terrible for the last 10 years, which has been hard to take as a fan. But recently, they're catching that old magic again. They're ranked right now number 3 in the AP poll. They have a quarterback that's already broken some school records, and he's only 2 games into this season. So, yeah, it's looking like I'm hoping that my team is back. So here's the kicker. Something that just hits me every time I see it. Right on this, there's a statue outside of the stadium of Chief Osceola and his horse Renegade. And underneath there's an inscription on the statue with just one word. It says "Unconquered." So that's not just branding or some kind of marketing hype. It's a word that's just heavy with layers of history, and it's what we're all about here today. So you see, Unconquered links back to the Seminole Indians, the one tribe, the one Native American tribe that stood its ground and was never beaten by the colonial powers. And just like the Seminoles, this tribe that was never conquered, you've had your share of fights and setbacks, but here you are still standing. You've had your share of fights and setbacks, you name it, trouble of all kinds. But here you are. And we're going to break down this Seminole story, just kind of a neat story from American history, and see if we can mine it for some of that indomitable spirit, the resilience that led to this tribe being the only Native American group that was never conquered, never forced into treaty. So the tale of the Seminole Indians, it's not just a chapter in some history book. It's a raw, uncut lesson on what it means to have an unbreakable will, especially when you're cornered from all sides. You ever feel that way, like you're cornered? So originally hailing from Florida, the Seminoles found themselves under a whole lot of pressure in the 1800s. European settlers and the U.S. government were both gunning to push them out of their ancestral lands, and that's what sparked the Seminole Wars. It wasn't a single battle. It was a long, drawn-out series of conflict that stretched over decades. So the first round of these wars kicked off between 1817 and 1818. So under leaders like Chief Osceola, who was a force to be reckoned with, the Seminoles didn't just roll over. They took to guerrilla warfare. They were making the swamps and the forests of Florida their battlefield and their cover, and yes, even their weapon. They knew that land like the back of their hand. And so they used that knowledge to run circles around the U.S. military. Round two, the Second Seminole War, went down between 1835 and 1842. And this wasn't just a tussle over their territory. It was a fight for the very soul of their culture. So even after many of the chiefs, including Chief Osceola, who got captured, even after their chiefs were incarcerated, they didn't break. A chunk of the tribe hunkered deep down into the Florida Everglades, adapting to swamp life and building stilt homes and living off the land. And then you've got the Third Seminole War from 1855 to 1858. So this was on a smaller scale, but the story is basically the same. Another attempt by the United States to get rid of the remaining Seminoles. And yet again, they stood their ground. The U.S. military finally realized that they were throwing good money after bad, and it wasn't worth the resources or the manpower to keep this war going. So what's the end game? The Seminoles were never entirely defeated, never completely uprooted. Some still call Florida home. Some were relocated, but some still are there in Florida, and they've got their reservations and communities that are living proof of their unconquered spirit. So why does all this matter? I'm not teaching a lesson on football here or American history, but like the Seminoles, every man has his personal battles. You've got a complex terrain that you're trying to navigate. And the core lesson here is about maintaining your sovereignty, your self-worth, and your convictions, no matter what or who you're up against. The Seminoles teach us that if you've got grit, adaptability, and a strong sense of community and values, you can weather any storm. So you too can remain unconquered. So listen up. This is vital. I'm going to share some lessons here about how you can continue to push forward in your life with this unbreakable spirit. So we need to dismantle this myth right now to begin with here. And that is that changing your course equals failure. That's a myth, that if you pivot or reorient yourself, that you've been defeated. That's just dead wrong. So shifting your direction isn't a loss at all. It's a strategy. It's intelligence in action. It's adapting. Life is anything but a straight road. It's more like a battlefield ridden with landmines and ambushes. And every general worth his salt knows that you have to adapt to ever-changing conditions. Life is always evolving. And the same goes for you in your personal wars. So when you shift, it's not retreating, it's repositioning for a more effective assault on life's challenges. You're saying, I'm fully engaged here and I'm adapting to life's punches. I'm taking it as it comes and I'm not going to be defeated. So I want to talk about something that's actually part of our Red 9, and this is something that separates the breakable from the unbreakable. And that is endurance. Recall the Seminoles. What stands out isn't just their battle tactics, but their unyielding endurance, their refusal to bow. Despite overwhelming opposition year after year, there were several of these wars that happened, and they did not give up. And this isn't stubbornness. This is willpower manifested in their real life story. And it's a mental and emotional and spiritual thing. There's something that says, try harder. You're not going to break me. Endurance isn't just about how tough you are. It's about taking life's hardest hits and continuing to advance. You're not just surviving. You're telling your challenges, you're saying to these things, you're saying to yourself and to the opposition that you face, is that all you've got? Every hit you take and keep moving is another brick in your resilience. So we need to look inward. We get this straight. If your internal foundation is weak, then your external power is just for show. It's like building a castle on quicksand. It's not going to last. We need to work on our inner stronghold. Self-worth, self-respect, self-confidence. This isn't just feel-good talk. This is survival. And what you tell yourself when no one's around becomes the actions that you take when everyone's watching. So you got to start reinforcing your internal architecture. You got to ditch the beliefs that have sabotaged you. Cast out the lingering self-doubt. You got to start constructing an inner edifice so strong that life's unpredictability becomes manageable and even maybe conquerable. So by mastering these facets, understanding shifts as strategy and not failures, building a strong capacity for endurance and fortifying your inner core, you're not just getting better, you're becoming invincible. You're transforming into a man who faces life with an unconquered spirit. And he's resilient against all odds. This isn't just about tackling life, it's about dominating it. There's a common misconception that being a warrior means that you have to stand alone. And that's only part of the story. Your strength really grows exponentially when you are multiplied by a tribe. You're a tribe. You learn from the Seminoles again, they didn't just fight as warriors, they fought together, they fought as a tribe. And if in isolation, even in the strongest form, they can be defeated. We can be defeated. But united, you're nearly invincible. It's not just about being the lone wolf. Even the most legendary soldiers, the most legendary warriors, they had their round tables. They had their tribes. A community doesn't dilute your strength. It amplifies it. So you got to surround yourself with men who resonate with what you want, and hopefully that's what we're teaching. And in that company, you don't only uphold, but also elevate your own standards. You become collectively empowered. It's a unit that's bound by common ideals and goals and aspirations. Now let's talk about certainty. So this isn't about arrogance. We've got to move forward in certainty. It's not about being ego-centered or prideful. It's about taking stock of your victories and using them as fuel. Your past is an entire catalog of lessons. Think about everything that you've learned. Each thing that you've been through is proof of your capacity to win and to triumph. You got to use that. When you face new challenges or old ones wearing new faces, you got to reach into the arsenal, your historical arsenal. Certainty isn't something we gain blindly and just, blind optimism. It's a vision that is created by our experience. When you look forward with certainty, the future is not some unknown challenge. You see it as more of an opportunity. It's another battlefield where you're going to prove yet again what you're made of. And this is the crux of that, is mindset. Without a resilient mindset, everything else is useless. Resilience isn't some innate trait that we were born with. It's cultivated. It's a mental stance that we have to create. It's deciding unequivocally that you're not going to bow, irrespective of the things that life brings you, the battering rams that show up to knock you out of your way. This is about retraining your mind to work for you and not against you. It's learning to see not roadblocks, but challenges, not crises, but catalysts. Think about that. Not a crisis, it's a catalyst. And this isn't some fantasy talk. This is cognitive reconditioning. So when your mind is aligned with resilience and endurance, each challenge, everything becomes a call to prove your valor and exemplify the things that you're learning, the things that we're teaching here: integrity, discipline, resourcefulness. I want to talk about some of the men that I've worked with. One is a guy named Mark. He's a serial entrepreneur. He found himself in the stormy mess that was his divorce. And while he's going through that, while at the same time facing the value of his business plummet, the weight was just unbearable, to say the least. When he started working with me and working with some men in the groups that I run, he began to reframe these adversities as just like shifts, not losses. And through his own resourcefulness, he restructured his business. He started cutting the fluff and focusing more on the core revenue streams. He was able to focus and realign himself business-wise. And in his personal life, he took responsibility for his part in the marriage, in the failed relationship. And he sought some mutual closure over that. His acceptance of life and the shifts that he had to make and his endurance through his hardship, those were the bricks and mortar that restored his self-worth. Today, his business is not only recovered, but is flourishing. He's found a deeper, more meaningful connection with a woman who shares his values. And this has really turned out to be a win for him. He began thinking that he was completely defeated. He was ready to give up. And by reviewing some of his strengths in the past and working with these men and gaining a better perspective of himself and his life and how he should see what's happening in his world, he turned a lot of that around. The next guy is Tom. He's an executive in his late 40s. He was deeply submerged in his work, but he was emotionally and physically just drained, just felt dead. He was alienated from his family. He was detached from his own health. His energy was just at an all-time low, and he initially saw himself as a failure, as a husband, as a father, as an executive. But after studying and adopting the principles of the Red Nine, particularly those of like discernment, he began to make some choices that aligned more with his long-term well-being. He learned to delegate, to trust his team. He learned to create time for his family and time for himself. He discovered that real engagement means being present. It means he's not just at work. He's a rejuvenated man in both his professional and his personal life. Engagement means that you're participating with good vibes, and that's what he did. Another kid was Kyle. Well, I say kid, he's a recent college graduate, but he felt lost in all of the career paths before him. He had his degree, but he didn't know exactly what he wanted to even do with it. He had some failures in some jobs, and he was just paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong decision about what he wanted to do for work. And he was afraid that he was, going to be just an inevitable failure. But through the principle of discipline that we discussed many times, he learned to focus and limit his choices by aligning them with the things that he valued the most, his core values and his long-term vision. So then discernment follows, and Kyle committed to a job that resonated with his inner sort of calling. This isn't about finding a job. It's about committing to a path in life. And he now sees every career move as an opportunity for growth and learning. He's still not happy completely where he is, but he understands that this is part of what's building him into the man that he's going to have figured out. And, he's working on a path and a blueprint, a map for his life. One last example, Sean, he was a construction worker. He found himself caught in this cycle of alcohol abuse and legal problems. He'd been arrested multiple times, and he felt that he had been kind of stamped as this failure, it led to this vicious cycle of self-doubt, low self-worth. And the problem here was a lack of a strong internal foundation. And so when he joined us, the primary focus for him was actually on reverence. And he established this internal foundation. He learned to recognize his skills and the value that he brings to his work and to society. He channeled his energy in a positive way, in a positive direction. He began seeking freedom from addiction. And with discipline, he did what he needed to do with the legal system. He took steps to rectify his wrongs. And he's not just a construction worker. He became seriously this warrior who builds not just buildings and homes and structures, but also he's building a meaningful life. And once he had created this inner foundation, his judgments of his past mistakes lost their power over him. So he's now not only excelling in his career, but also free from the shackles of alcohol and legal constraints. He managed all of his things that he needed to do with probation and is well on his way. So in all these cases, the takeaway really is the same. These men felt conquered. They believed that they were defeated and that they had failed. But they discovered that they were, in fact, unconquered. They just needed to align their actions and their mindset with the principles that unveil this truth about who they are. They each learned to adapt and endure and overcome their challenges. They redefined their own narratives. So when you train with these people, you don't just tackle the problems, you decimate these problems. The unconquered life is not just some abstract ideal. It's a tangible reality. It's there. It's within your grasp. You've got to seize it. So being unconquered, that extends beyond just survival. It's more than just physically staying alive. It means that represents a specific mindset, this state of existence that emphasizes your values and your resilience during difficult times. It's not just about avoiding harm. It involves an unwavering focus, a mental clarity and focus. You adhere to your values and you don't allow setbacks to alter your core principles. So an unconquered man doesn't simply fulfill basic life requirements. He's actively engaged in every moment with a strong sense of self-worth. This type of dude establishes a secure emotional and psychological environment. Think about that. You establish a secure emotional and psychological environment. That's within you. And that remains stable despite external pressure. So although this type of guy is aware of his imperfections and his errors, he learns from them and he recalibrates his actions. He's not drifting from his central beliefs ever. Even the most capable of men benefit from the support of a like-minded group, and such a thing serves more than one purpose. There's dual roles in this. So you act as a mirror for self-assessment and as motivators for the others and their continual growth. And having that kind of supportive tribe that amplifies your ability, that sustains your unconquered status. So this being unconquered, it's an approach to life that it's about creating a specific mindset. It goes beyond just avoiding life's challenges. It involves actively interacting with those challenges. And achieving this state requires a combination of personal resilience, resourcefulness, and the support of a strong community. And those things together form the comprehensive package of what it means to be unconquered. So I want to wrap up what we've gone through here today with just a summary. So we first talked about the myth that life shifts, the changing direction in life, that it's a myth that those are setbacks or failures. When you pivot, that's a strategic move. We talked about endurance. We borrowed some wisdom from the unconquered Seminole tribe. We're looking inward. We're stressing the importance of an inner foundation. We talked about the irreplaceable value of community. We talked about the power of a forward-gazing certainty. We drilled down onto the requirement of having a resilient mindset. All these elements are, all these things are interconnected, and every piece there strengthens the others in this symbiotic relationship. This isn't just preparation. This is armoring. You're not just capable of facing life's trials. You're fully equipped to dominate those. So consider yourselves briefed. You are now more prepared for the trials ahead. They're going to come. And when you recognize that your score, your record is 100,000 to 0, you've never been defeated. If you're listening to this show right now, you're unconquered. And I'm teaching you that so that you can feel some faith in yourself when difficulty comes again. It's going to come. So stand ready. You and I are built to be unconquered. Till next time, gentlemen, no excuses. Alpha up.
If you're a man that controls his own destiny, a man that is always in the pursuit of being better, you are in the right place. You are responsible. You are strong. You are a leader. You are a force for good. Gentlemen, you are the Alpha, and this is the Alpha Quorum.